few weeks ago, I got to play a couple hours of The Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown through Ubisoft's cloud setup. It's a frenetic, fun Metroidvania oozing with style. Came away mighty impressed with how this one's shaping up, so let's take a look. You are Sargon, one of the immortals of Persia. You serve the crown as its fiercest warriors, able to turn the tide of battle when all hope is lost. The game starts with an epic battle as you and your comrades tutorialize your way through dozens of enemies. It's big, bombastic, and gorgeous. Gareth Coker's soundtrack complements it all well, and even playing through the cloud using my mediocre cellular internet, it was a blast. Things will happen, and eventually you end up in an enormous labyrinth of a castle. Time flows oddly here, and demons run amok. Without getting into any spoilers, I was at first a little disappointed, but then greatly intrigued with the plot, because I could see the initial story beats coming from a mile away, but then things shifted wildly. It was exciting to see the tropes being messed with, and the timey-wimey wibbly-wobbliness of it all started to sink in. Sargon himself has two blades, which you will use by tapping or holding X. Eventually, you'll have a couple of ranged attacks, accessed by tapping or holding Y. A is your jump, and even through a noticeably laggy cloud connection, it all felt good. The right trigger is a dodge and slide that turns into a run when held down. The left trigger is extremely important as it is your parry. And while you can defeat most enemies without mastering it, the parry is extremely useful and powerful, especially against the bosses I faced during the first 2 hours of the game that I was allowed to play through. The left trigger is also used to be held down and access your Athra abilities. These are meter-powered super moves and look incredible visually while potentially dealing massive damage or offering up things like very necessary heals. You do also have a potion available by pressing up on the D-pad, and these replenish whenever you save at a checkpoint. There are time crystals that you can use to upgrade your weapons and many other forms of currency and materials because this game's big. The very tiny part of the Mount Kaf map, that's the stronghold you'll spend the majority of the game in, that I got to see was big. And once I zoomed out, I was shocked at just how freaking big this game seems to be. When I asked PR how long a run typically takes, it was like the 30 to 40 hour range for their answer. In the short period I got to experience it, I'm in. It feels great to play, and despite being simplistic feeling, the variety of enemy attacks and everything you do just feels so good. It never grew old to get a perfect counter off. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is flippin' gorgeous. It's that familiar 2.5D look with movement in the back and foreground while your character is always on a 2D plane. The art style is tremendous, with a visual flair added to certain attacks and parries that had me ready to jump out of my seat and yell at how good they looked. Even though most of the game does take place in what is ostensibly one location, the environment variety is still pretty high. Mount Kaf is big, and thanks to its issues with time manipulation, it can change in cool ways. Basic things like rebuilding destroyed obelisks to be able to access higher points is par for the course, and I cannot wait to see the sewers that I was teased about after beating the first major boss. Voice acting was great, with solid direction that kept the initial cheesy lines from ever feeling forced. Because early on I was a little afraid of how tropey it would all feel, but things swiftly changed and the voice actors matched the tonal differences from their first level outing with aplomb. The music was brilliant, which I've come to expect from anything Gareth Coker's a part of. He never misses, fitting the world he's in perfectly while having a familiar style that just subtly peeks its way in. The musical direction during boss fights and cutscenes early on is a masterclass in knowing when to jump in with something big, but also knowing how to back off and let either the voice acting or action take center stage. In conclusion, there's a demo coming in early January, and if this genre appeals to you, then you should try it. I'll have a full review closer to the game's launch a few weeks after that demo hits, and if it can keep up the pace of this blazing fast start, it's going to get 2024 started off with one hell of a bang.